centers, and here's Pettersson, scores! Unbelievable. What a shot.
Off the bar! Sprint, and it's coming back in! It's Jones! It's 4-4!
Surveys, nowhere to go, and back in the end zone. Touchdown! What a catch by Tyler Lockett.
One for Thompson. He's for the try. Deep left field. No doubt about it.
Class hero, 21st century breakdown. I once was lost but never was found. I think I'm losing what's left of my mind to the 20th century deadline.
Dun, 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 dun. Hello everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the Avid Discussers podcast. It's your boys, Joshua Ray, alongside Ty Party. Ty, how are you doing today on this great day?
I am doing awesome, and I'm assuming you're feeling the same way with hockey coming back up?
Yep, hockey's coming back. The 32nd NHL team has been revealed, and sports in general are coming back. Got the NBA returning and the MLB as well. So nature is healing, if you can say that. And the Vancouver Canucks are going to play an exhibition game on the 29th, I believe, against the Winnipeg Jets. And I guess in the next few days they will be heading to Edmonton for the playoffs and the play-ins. So the Canucks have been shuffling their lines throughout training camp, and makes us wonder what our ideal lineups would be for the Canucks. Ty, you want to start us off?
When I see the Canucks, I think you definitely got to start with like JT Miller and Pettersson together. You know, the results have really spoke for themselves. So I think whoever's on that right wing with them, that line's going to perform because of those two regardless. So like, even if it ends up with like Vertanen, and I'm not saying I want Vertanen on there, but like whoever's there, basically, I'm saying like that first line's always going to perform. I think the most conversation you have with this team obviously is probably centered around like the third and fourth line. I think with the way that you saw Bo Horvat play with Tanner Pearson. The other thing that I wanted to bring up to people though was last year you saw Horvat's numbers with Antoine Roussel. So like when I saw them go back to that a little bit, I actually really like that because I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but like Roussel and Horvat, they were controlling play at a really good rate last year. So if you go, I think the way that that Travis Green kind of outlined it is probably the best way in a sense that Vancouver can get depth with what they have, because they obviously don't have a very deep lineup compared to like a contending team. But the way that Travis Green really had it was a way that they can almost compete with any team because of the depth. And, you know, hope that Pettersson can kind of carry whoever he's with. And then you have like a Gaudette who has, then, you know, you upgrade Gaudette in the sense that you have JT Miller and Tyler Toffoli on the wing with him. So I didn't mind that. I think with the defensive pairs, you got to look at like how I think in the best world, you don't want Tyler Myers in the top 4. And essentially that's just because they don't really have a guy that can pick up for his defensive play. So if you go with him in the top 4, it's just because you're going to prioritize your offense and not care about your all-around game, I guess. And so like going like a Quinn Hughes and Tyler Myers paired is like fine, but I guess like I'd rather see like Stetcher in the top 4 because I think he deserves to be there more. And realistically, Travis Green has he cares too much about Chris Tanev to put him in the bottom pair, I guess. So I think like realistically something around. I want to see. I like what he went with, but like I think the fourth line you kind of have to just stick it, I guess, with Beagle in a sense. Like, not that I'm a fan of him, but like he's not moving anywhere really. I think some combination of like Beagle, Furland, and like Mott or Eriksson. And you know that I'm a big fan of Louis Eriksson already in the sense that he controls play really well in possession wise, and you know on defense he's fairly good too, and on offense he drives play pretty well too. So, excuse me. In terms of like a fourth liner, like that's all you can ask for. Yeah, it's not ideal that he's making $6 million, but like he's totally fine on the fourth line given how good he is if we take salary out of the picture. So I think the tough thing is determining, do you want to beef up the top six and just live and let die with you to bottom six, or do you want to have a three lines that can play and rotate those three lines? That's kind of what I think it comes down to with the Canucks.
Well, you got to put Elias Pettersson and JT Miller together because the chemistry has shown all season. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you want to try Tyler Toffoli again with them, or do you go back to the Lotta line with Brock Besser? Both options work, and you can always shake things up. But the top six, you got Horvat and Pearson together. It's pretty much figured out. It's all about the bottom six. Like, where does someone like Antoine Roussel go, or Zach McEwen if he makes it in, or even Tyler Mott? What about Louis Eriksson? Maybe I would go with Gaudette, the third line center. Go with Antoine Roussel on the wing and Virtanen on the right. And Gaudette and Virtanen, they've shown they can play well together, so you might as well put them there. But the fourth line is where things get even more interesting. If Brandon Sutter is healthy, where do you put him? And doesn't look like Josh Levo will play at the start of the qualifiers from what I've heard, so we can leave him out of the equation for now, as well as Sutter. Well, you got to put Beagle on the fourth line as center, because that's pretty much what he's there for. I mean, you could also Louis Eriksson. We harp on his contract a lot, but as a fourth liner, he's actually not that bad. If he was making $1 million a year, we'd be saying totally different things about him, but he's making $6 million. He isn't bad defensively, and just as Jason Botchford said, he does the little things. And if there's an empty net, of course, you can always count on him to be on the ice when the net's empty. And Tyler Mott, he's a pretty solid fourth liner. He's got the speed, does score some from time to time, but he's more effective as a penalty killer. And I think he's pretty underrated. So you probably go on the fourth line, Eriksson, Beagle, and then Mott. Or you can even put in Zach McEwen for an extra spark. So it'll be interesting to see what Travis Green does with the lineups, but that's just my ideal lineup. And for the defense, I would like Tyler Myers to be on the third pair because that's where I think he belongs, but he has looked good with Quinn Hughes, and Quinn Hughes pretty much masks all his problems. So, let's see, could it be Edler, and then Tanev, Hughes, and Myers? Then you could put someone like Fantenberg and Stetcher together, or even throw in Jordy Ben, excuse me. But that's how I would do it. And I think that Stetcher should play with Edler. I like him with Edler. He's pretty effective. I think they are pretty effective together. They were before the season got shut down, but that would be my ideal lineup. And of course, you got Jacob Markstrom in net with Demko as his backup.
I think like realistically, when you look at like Eriksson, like I looked at the numbers that you're talking was he drives play offensively and defensively probably better than anybody outside of like maybe Pettersson in terms of a raw numbers standpoint, like not like the quality of shots, but just that like he's second on the team in driving shots for, and he is second on the team behind Quinn Hughes in shot suppression. So like realistically, he's a really good two-way player, but like when you look at his, the quality of shots, obviously he drops a little bit. But it's looking at him that like he's driving play really well, that almost like even like in this series necessarily because the Wild aren't like a very fast team, that like I almost like rather have him on the third line than Virtanen. The other one is obviously McEwen, and I was talking to Drance about this. Was you look at McEwen's numbers from a whole, right? So like the whole season, they're obviously not that special. And then he pointed it out to me. He said like, most of those numbers are coming from the part of the season when I think whoever got hurt and he got caught in a top six role, thrown right into it right away. And so his numbers were not very good. I think he had like a 30 to 36% shot share, which is relatively close to what Jay Beagle has. So that's just good for context. And then he went back down to the AHL. He comes back up and they put him more in a sheltered third line role. He can play his physical game, and his matchups aren't as tough. Whereas like with Horvat, he's facing the top line, and it's just it's a big jump from the AHL level to the NHL level speed. Then he gets the easier competition, the whole bit. And you look at his numbers from a bottom six standpoint, he's like a 60% shot share here. Very small sample size, but like those are very promising numbers for a bottom six. So I almost think like realistically, if Virtanen is like has all these problems that like behind the scenes we don't know about, is Green just pushing him, or are these legitimate problems that we could see McEwen playing the right wing on third or fourth line and Eriksson playing one of them too? So it's a big question, obviously.
That is a big question, and we're not sure what goes on behind closed doors. Virtanen has taken a lot of heat during training camp, especially with Horvat yelling at him and all that. But if Green does take him out, you got to put in Zach McEwen. You never know what he could do in the playoffs, and this is someone who can be an X factor in the playoffs. And same with Virtanen too. But knowing Travis Green, he might bench him for the first game thanks to whatever's going on behind the scenes. But McEwen on the third line is not a bad idea, and I'd totally go for it. And he and Gaudette, like the last few games before everything just went shut down, he and Gaudette proved well offensively, and it would not be a good idea either. And speaking of McEwen, let's move on to who would be our X factors for the Canucks in the playoffs. And Zach McEwen is a name we've already brought up. So, Ty, who do you think could be X factors for the Canucks in the playoffs?
I think when you're looking at like what's the best way to put this? When you're looking at like an obvious one, right? It's obviously, you look at guys like Tyler Toffoli or JT Miller because they've like when I look at JT Miller, drives play insanely good on offense, a great complementary piece to Pettersson in a sense that like he's driving so compared to the mean player, like an average player in the NHL, the average number, he's driving 4 more shot attempts per 60 than like an average player. That's the best on the Canucks, higher than anybody else by an entire shot almost. Then you look at the quality of shots for the expected goals for. He's third on the team, right, only behind Pettersson and Horvat, and he's tied with Horvat. So when you look at like a guy like him, like JT Miller, he's secretly doing all the things, but obviously I don't agree he's the unsung hero. But I think like you see a guy like him that like, he's secretly doing all these little things to make Pettersson shine, but then when I look at like somebody like Alex Edler, like he's secretly been very good offensively. And another guy would be Troy Stetcher because of his two-way play. And I think realistically, also I look at a guy like even Zach McEwen, and I say this because I think if he's in a bottom six role that he could be very useful. And a lot of people are pointing out their shooting percentage, and from me, I look at like an 82 game season when I'm evaluating a player. I don't just look at like, okay, if he's in this situation, he's obviously better, but then if he's this situation, he sucks. Like I kind of like to have a full sample size of everything. And if those numbers are apparent that, like, say he wasn't very good in this situation, but he was really good in this situation, and like the numbers are very obvious between the two, I'll take into account that. And so with Zach McEwen, a guy that he was not very good in the bottom six, but he's other way around. He's not very good in the top six, very good in the bottom six. So like, is that just like noise in the sense that it's such a small sample size of games played? I think we really have to we haven't figured that out with McEwen, but Drance is pointing out to me that like those numbers are legit, and basically like he's probably pointing towards being an everyday NHL player at this point from what we've seen of him in the bottom six. I think with a guy like him, like he's a very physical player, and if his numbers are relatively similar to what they were in the regular season, the bottom six role, he could be a really big player in this playoff series.
Yeah, totally. Other X factors would be obviously Jacob Markstrom, voted as the MVP, though many others beg to differ, but I agree with that. He has had his struggles throughout training camp, but if he picks off where he left off before the injury, then the Canucks should be in good hands. Of course, you can't forget Quinn Hughes. There's not much to say about him. JT Miller, Tanner Pearson, and Tyler Toffoli, they've got that playoff experience, especially the latter two, because they've won a Stanley Cup. So they could potentially be an X factor. And if he's healthy, which we don't know if he will be, Michael Ferland could be one too. And we all know what he can do in the playoffs. We have all seen it when he was with the Flames against the Canucks. He can hit, he can score goals, he can be the agitator if he's healthy once again. And we don't know if he will be healthy, but I hope he is. Someone like Adam Gaudette, my opinion, the unsung hero. He could also be an X factor for the Canucks in the playoffs because he shows up when the Canucks need him most. And of course, you got a guy like Tyler Mott. Very effective fourth liner, great on the penalty kill. And you never know. So pretty much anyone could be an X factor for the Canucks against the series against the Minnesota Wild. And that's coming in like less than 2 weeks, I believe. So we can't wait for that. Anyway, big hockey news yesterday. Seattle gets Kraken, literally. So Seattle is the 32nd franchise in the NHL, and the name is the Kraken. For those who don't know, Kraken is some kind of like sea monster squid from Scandinavian folklore or something. I read it somewhere. And honestly, I've been high on that name for a long time. And the logo looks great, especially the secondary logo, where the top is supposed to be the Space Needle, and I think that looks so cool. And the jerseys just look so phenomenal. So the Canucks have a new rival, and it's going to be their closest rival. So a lot of Kraken fans, or I should call them the crackheads, will come down here to Rogers Arena for games against the Canucks, or the Canucks fans can invade the Climate Pledge Arena, or as I like to call it now, the Krakhouse for Kraken games. So it's going to be a cracking good time with Vancouver and Seattle. And wonder what the rivalry should be called. Like the Battle of the Pacific Northwest, the Rain City rivalry, Battle of the I-5, Battle of the 49th parallel. It's going to be great. And now the Kraken got to do is find ways to steal a player from every team. But overall, welcome to the NHL, the Seattle Kraken. Can't wait for them to play games against the Canucks. and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a cracking good time. Ty, do you have anything to add on this?
Sorry, I was on mute there.
Yeah, it's all right.
I mean, like at this, I just think this is gonna be. It's pretty awesome that in the sense that like you're gonna have. I think like it's gonna add in some of those East Coast teams. Like, say you're a fan of Toronto, like a hardcore fan of Toronto. Like, you know, the West Coast swing and the whole bit. Like on a really long road trip, when they go like Vancouver, Seattle, and then hit the California sweep and come home. Like that would be pretty sweet if you travel that and do that a road trip.
Oh yeah, it would be. And we can take the train down to Seattle for
that. This could be pretty awesome
for a Kraken game. Like, could you imagine a bunch of Canucks fans on a train just getting off? Like, the arena is gonna be a bit further from the train station, so yeah, I guess you have to take like another like transit or whatever.
Say you go down there for a hockey game on Saturday night,
and then the Seahawks game on Sunday.
Catch Seahawks on Sunday, or
that's
same
my
goes
dream
for
weekend.
Yeah, same goes for it with say what if they played Seattle in the playoffs? That would be pretty damn awesome.
Oh, that would be pretty cool. And
would there be more Vancouver fans in Seattle or Seattle fans in Vancouver if they play each other in the playoffs?
Well, I guess we're gonna find out. Oh boy, it's the mayor's already been chirping
because here's the thing though, it's like Seattle, it's gonna be so cheap for them to come over here.
Yeah, and
like it's gonna be like, I don't know, like say like what's a relative like value for a playoff game? Maybe like $160 maybe for an upper bowl.
Yeah, it's quite expensive
for
here.
Canucks.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like cheaper there.
70% cheaper probably, or 70% of that. I mean, sorry, not 70% cheaper.
70% of that, probably, and
so like realistically, it's like spending like, and that's for a playoff game if Seattle comes down here. So like, I don't know, like, because like a couple of years ago, I was looking at doing it for Arizona when they were in the playoffs because their tickets are so damn cheap there. Like it would have been the same same price almost like fly down there, and my uncle's down in Arizona. I stay at his house and go to a game, and it would have been like the same price to buy a playoff ticket for Vancouver. This is like 10 years ago, but
10 years ago.
Yeah, like that's how cheap Arizona's tickets are. So like I don't know, like Seattle's a relatively good sports market. That their tickets are probably pretty damn expensive though.
Yeah, Seattle is a great sports town. You listeners probably know that me and Ty are fans of the Seahawks. They got the Mariners down there, though they haven't been in the playoffs since 2001. They got the Sounders, the MLS
don't
team.
Expect them to be back there either.
Well, I don't expect them to be back there either.
If we're talking about baseball a little bit, I mean, we'll go into that next. But
yeah, we'll go into that.
Looking forward to that. I'll say I've got a couple bets I placed down today. I could share those on the pod for tomorrow, I guess.
Oh yeah, and
I'll talk a bit about the NHL bets. I've been looking into the series a little more from the numbers too.
Oh yes. Who else does Seattle have? Yeah, they got the Sounders, I guess, the recent MLS Cup champion.
They're a good team.
Yeah, they're a good team, and completely ass-whooped the Whitecaps a few days ago, but somehow the Whitecaps are moving on after beating Chicago.
I haven't even been following them, but I've just seen the amount of tilt that has happened from Seattle, like the Whitecaps, and it's just like every Vancouver team, just like literally doesn't matter who you cheer for, is the exact same result. It's just like, all hope you have for the team just like goes completely out the window when things start to turn. It's
the hope that kills you. And Seattle's they used to have the Supersonics. Now they're the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they deserve their basketball team back too. So
I'd expect Seattle to get a basketball team back soon. I think the big selling point will be how the season tickets look for Seattle's hockey team, and that'll be a big selling point in getting basketball back. Because there are legitimate players that are saying like we need it back in Seattle. Like Kevin Garnett said, if he had enough money, he'd buy a Seattle franchise. Yeah,
then Kevin Durant too, because he played his rookie year in Seattle before they moved.
Do you see like I don't know how many years. I don't know how many years does KD probably have, like 8 left, something like that.
Probably, I'm not sure. But
he's 31. Say he plays to like 37. Could you see like a couple of guys like going back and buying a Seattle franchise, like combining together? Like I like basketball. Like realistically, like he's not going to play past 40 with the injuries he's had. So like I think that he's got one more contract after this, and then you could say like a bunch of players group together and buy a Seattle franchise. It's not out of the question, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. But the Kraken, it's going to be great with them. They're gonna now they're just getting Kraken on which on the expansion draft, and the jerseys look great. The logo looks great. I can't wait to go down to a game, for a Canucks game in Seattle, and there's a possibility for like a Stadium Series game or a Winter Classic in Seattle. You never know. There could be one at Safeco or at the Clink or at the University of Washington. That would be fun. But anyway, let's move on to some baseball. It's back, surprisingly. I did not expect it to come back over the last few months, but here we are. And I love baseball. It's a good sport, though it can get boring at times, I'll admit. And the Jays, believe they're going to be playing in. They wanted to play in Pittsburgh, but that's not happening. And it looks like they could be playing in Buffalo.
It's Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo.
They got locked in recently. It's Buffalo.
Yeah, opening day was yesterday. The Yankees, they beat the World Series champions, the Nationals. And the Dodgers just crushed the Giants 8-1.
That's not even really a surprise. So like the Dodgers,
really
if you're looking at from like a pure talent standpoint, I think the Dodgers are quite clearly the best team in the league. But
they're my World Series pick.
I think like the other thing you got to look at though with the Dodgers is like in baseball, like you can relatively predict who is going to make the playoffs. It's just in a sense, again, like any team, you need to have a lot of luck. But again, you have to be good to get that luck. So I think it's hard to. I think if you're looking like easily, you could see like, what if the Yankees get hot and the Yankees, bats get hot? That like I don't know if the Dodgers necessarily have the bats to match them outside of their main core. But I think like that, the Dodgers obviously have better pitching than the Yankees. And I mean, like I also look at like the Astros, and even through their cheating scandal, is that they still have a pretty damn good team, but I think it really comes down to even Boston's another sleeper, even though they lost Betts, like they still have a lot of really quality talent over there too. And there's sleeper picks like the Reds in the sense that like they have a really good team if they get on the good side of variance that they could go on a run too.
Oh yes, definitely. And speaking of Betts, I've heard the Dodgers locked him up for 12 years. It's good on them because he's probably the best player in the majors.
That would probably be the equivalent of like locking up. I'd say he's probably like the 5th best player in baseball. So like probably locking up like a Malkin or something.
Oh yeah,
hockey equivalent probably.
Probably.
So it's if you're trading like for a guy like that, I mean you pretty much gotta say like we're locking him up as and he's gonna play the prime of his career out in LA, and then in baseball you can just throw those guys in the minors and pay them out.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's no cap in baseball.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing I don't know. That's the only thing I don't like about baseball.
There's no cap, no salary cap, and that's why
that's the thing. The only thing I don't
contracts.
like about baseball. That's the other thing though is you can't do that in like hockey. I think like realistically the best situation for anybody is a soft cap, like what basketball has.
Yeah, they have a soft cap.
So realistically, you don't get hurt by. You can go a little bit over, but it's not like you can go over absurd like the way the Yankees and Boston do and Chicago, and it's just not fair to these other teams.
Yeah, you
like
got the
Oakland can't compete with anybody because they have no money.
Yeah, remember Moneyball. There are rich teams, there are poor teams, and then there's us. That's Oakland.
Well, you could see like in hockey, if there's no cap, like Toronto, Montreal, those teams would just be miles ahead of each other, and then like you'd have like a team like Minnesota or something where like they couldn't compete at all, or Florida even.
And the Blue Jays, as we're recording this, they're going to be playing the Rays in 2 hours. Never liked the Rays.
340.
Yeah, 340. Never liked the Rays, to be honest. To me, they're like the Minnesota Wild of baseball.
What makes you hate them?
Yeah, they're just there.
What makes you hate them, though?
I don't know. Just a boring team. And
last year they were good.
Yeah, they were good. I'm not going to deny that they were good. And
the thing is, the Rays that I like is that they really embraced analytics because they didn't have the money to compete with any of these teams. And you know what? They pretty much almost made they came in and they broke the traditional rules of baseball in the sense that they do this opening starter thing so that their pitcher wouldn't have to face the top of the order when he came in. Like they were just doing all these little things, heavily embraced analytics with how they were shifting and the whole bit. And they got these value contracts. I like what they've done in the sense that they don't have the money to compete with the top teams, and that's why I don't hate them at all. Like when I look at it, baseball, like the teams I hate the Yankees, and I mean I don't mind the Cubs. I don't hate the Cubs at all. Actually, I'm not. I take that one back. I hate the Yankees. I hate Boston, and I dislike the Dodgers because of the sense of how much money they have. But I really like a guy like Clayton Kershaw. I'm a huge Kershaw fan.
Yeah, I'm a big Kershaw fan too. And the Jays, to be honest, I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but
no, they won't make it. Sorry.
No, they won't. I can't wait to watch.
The only reason they're going to make it, if they make it, it's because they bring Pearson up, and Pearson's a legit ace.
Yeah, legit.
Ryu pretty much repeats what he's done. The only thing that I don't like about Ryu though is basically he's not a strikeout guy. He's more like a pitcher that he kind of has to count on a really good defense, and if the Jays can provide that, he's going to be an ace. But I don't know, like the Dodgers just have like a lot of more pieces than the Jays have, I guess, in that sense. That
they do. Well, you can't wait.
You have to. Sorry, go on.
Can't wait to watch Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. Speaking of Bo Bichette, Twitter was filled with Bo Bichette puns the last few days, thanks to this.
Can you explain this to me?
Okay, I'll explain this to you. So, this woman, podcast host, Jordan Ciccelli, she hosts the Ball Girls podcast. Good on her. And she tweeted this: Bo Bichette joins a frat. Bro Bichette. It's like a pun, a play on words with his name, and then for some reason that blew up. And you got like Fox Sports making these puns, and the Blue Jays themselves. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm in between. I love it and hate it at the same time. And it just took off. And for the Canucks, Quinn Hughes puns have been popping up. I even made a few myself, like Quinn Hughes drinks a beer. Quinn booze. Quinn Hughes listens to Origin of Symmetry. Quinn Muse, for example. It's I don't know. I think it's great, and there were some really creative. There were some really creative puns on there, which we'll get to in the best and worst of Twitter. But Jordan's all like, you can't stop me with these. I'm gonna make some more. She made one on Mookie Betts. Like Mookie Betts listens to Green Day. You call him Dookie Betts. I'm all for puns, but some of them are just so bad. Some of them are really good. Well, I'll just say that. Anyway, Ty, do you have anything to say about this?
I don't mind it. I don't mind it, but it's just I don't know. I never hopped in it for a reason. Let's just say.
Okay. You want to talk about your betting now? Yeah, explain this whole betting thing to me and like why I should do it.
You want to hop in? I mean, I'm
curious.
I don't know, like just. I mean, like since like the Canucks basically sucked last couple of years, so like I've kind of taken up this a little bit. You know, you bet like a couple bucks on the game, make it a little more fun. Let's say like, you know, $3 or $4. I don't have the money to spend as much as these other guys, let's just say, but you know, one of the lines I was looking at really, it if we're talking picks, was I keep talking like Carolina's line is way too low compared to like, Pittsburgh's line in terms of betting. I think I don't know exactly what it was. I think it was like they were 120 favorite, which is almost even compared to the other team. So basically, I don't know the best way to describe it. I think they're like I don't have the numbers in front of me. Sorry. If we're looking at a pick, I'll just basically list who I think is going to win. I don't know can't find the numbers in front of me. Okay, Pittsburgh, Montreal. I think it's pretty clear that Pittsburgh's going to win, but the amount of money you'd have to pick to pay off for Pittsburgh is obviously not ideal. Carolina, I think from what I was looking at earlier, they were much lower. So Carolina is probably my favorite bet if I'm picking anybody so far, in the sense that the Rangers have the defense. Rangers don't have the defense to cover up for their offense, even though their offense is relatively close to what Carolina's is. It's just that Carolina has like that same level of offense and like a way better defense than the Rangers do. So I feel relatively safe, like the over in that game, because they're both very good offenses. Islanders versus Florida, that's another very pick'em game in a sense. I like the under in that game because both teams don't really score at all. Both teams, I think the Islanders are lean there because the Islanders are an average team and the Florida's an below average team. Chicago, Edmonton, I think it's pretty safe that we can say Chicago is going to win. And Calgary, Winnipeg, I think I'm probably, again, pretty safe that Calgary is going to win that game, in the sense that I was looking at it last night. The offense for Winnipeg is just not there. If Calgary stays with the box, Winnipeg, really has nowhere else to perform. Like, they had a good power play last year, but even strength, they're probably a bottom 5 team in the league, which is crazy to think with all the talent they have, but it's just the result.
Wow. So, what's the betting company
that they pretty much got in Calgary? What?
What was the betting company that you use?
Just use
Sports Action or what?
Bet365 was what I used.
Oh, that.
Pinnacle's another good one for Canada because it's not American money.
Okay.
You're hopping in for a couple bets now?
I don't know. It's best if
it's still a week away. Still a week away, right?
Right. I'm not the betting guy. I do like brackets, but I suck at those. Like last year's NHL playoff brackets, completely bombed.
I got a couple of those going.
And March Madness, my bracket gets busted every year. I'm not the best at predictions, but I don't know. Maybe I'll bet like when I get enough money, like $1. That's it, or something.
That's all you need. Just a little. Just have some fun, man.
Yeah, like
I think
it won't hurt, but
yeah. So either way, with like Calgary again, we feel pretty safe with them winning too. I think that if I'm parlaying one, I really like to start off with Carolina and Calgary because their lines are lower, and then you could throw in, again, we feel pretty safe that Pittsburgh and Edmonton both win their games. That we probably throw those on top, do a 3 parlay with Calgary, Carolina, and one of Pittsburgh and Edmonton. The thing with Florida and the Islanders, I think it's just kind of a pick-em game that we just really don't know what's going to happen. That's the problem. That Florida's offense, they've been scoring a ton, but the numbers kind of just suggest that it's like they shouldn't be scoring at all. And again, I don't trust Bobrovsky at all either. So I think I just lean with the Islanders. But again, it's a weird, both weird teams. So I think if I'm talking about 3 favorite, obviously Calgary, Carolina, and then one of Pittsburgh and Edmonton.
All right. Wow. Maybe I'll get into it. Maybe. But anyway, I'll move on to something. Gotta get off. Chelsea Football Club. They lost to Liverpool 5-3, and I had enough of their goalie, Kepa Arrizabalaga. I defended him all season, and I can't do it anymore. The man can't stop a beach ball to save his life. And the worst part is, I can't believe Chelsea paid £71 million for this guy. He is the world's most expensive goalkeeper and the most expensive player Chelsea have bought. for now. We got to move on from this guy. And Frank Lampard, from what I've heard, he's furious with him, and he wants him sold too. So I don't care. Sell him, loan him, get him away from this team. He can't stop a ball. And statistics show he is the worst goalie in the Premier League. He's faced less shots, but he lets in so many goals. Like in the game against Liverpool, that free kick, he didn't even move. Like, he just stood there. Like, what's that? Is that the ball? £71 million for this guy. I'm done defending him. Seriously. At least move when the free kick's coming. And don't just stand there. And as a goalie, you gotta, like, communicate with your defenders on the corners and all that. And he doesn't do that at all. And he's too aggressive when he's in net, and he's prone to these mistakes. And I don't know, he just can't stop a ball this season. Sure, he had, like, last season that penalty shootout against Frankfurt. That was his highest moment, but especially this season, other than that, he hasn't been good. I want him gone. Simple. I want him gone. And Frank wants him gone, so Chelsea can go after a guy like Jan Oblak or Andre Onana, who would be much better options. Because Chelsea can't compete for the title with this defense, and if we continue to have Kepa in net. My God. Man can't even stop a ball. But anyway, let's move on to something I've been discussing with, like, people close to my life. Like, what's something we will do more of once this pandemic ends? Like, for example, I'm going to go out more once everything's safe to go out more. Probably go out to bars more. I'll probably go, maybe I'll even try clubbing, even though it's not really my thing. And, of course, if I make enough money, go to sports games more. Because I've only been to 3 Canucks games in my entire life. Been to 1 Whitecaps game. And I've been to 2 Lions games. The Canucks have won 2 of the ones I've been to. The Lions have won both. Have won both of them. And the Whitecaps, when I saw them, they lost. So I'd probably go down to some Canadians games too at the net. I don't know why I didn't do it last summer. Because tickets are like $15. And of course, go down to Seattle for a Seahawks game. I don't care if it's like super high up. I gotta go to the Clink. I gotta. And hopefully I'll go to more concerts because I haven't been to one in my life. But hey, if Muse comes to town, I am definitely seeing them. And they need to play VC Place because they are probably the best live band on the planet. Like, the theatrics, with the drones in the air, Matt Bellamy's voice, the guitars, and all the pyrotechnics and the light shows. Like, you gotta go to a Muse concert, even though you don't like their music. You gotta. Our president, that would be my rule. Ty, do you have anything to add?
I think it's kind of like the thing with COVID is that everything you respect, you haven't been able to do, right? Like, that you just take for granted in a sense. Yeah. I think that I'm not going to take that for granted, let's just say, anymore after going through this. Even if it's just going to the movies. That's one of the things that I probably say I want to be at that first Canucks game when everything kind of gets back to normal and there's a vaccine. I think that I really want to be there. I think obviously going on trips again to the States when it's not a mess down there, that I really like to. I was supposed to go on a couple of trips this summer. Obviously got canceled because of COVID. I think just kind of stuff like that, really.
Yeah, I definitely go to the movies more. I love to watch movies, especially in the cinema. I'd even do it alone. I'll watch more of the movies that are like less mainstream. This might sound like a little edgy, but like the movies that get nominated for Oscars and all that a lot of like people don't know about. Like, sure, I love the Marvel movies, but gotta watch some what a lot of people call real cinema, and definitely trips too. Hopefully, go down to the States once everything's not a mess there. But when is the States never a mess? It's just saying. Anyway, I'm gonna go into break, and then our featured guest this week is Matthew Zator of the Hockey Writers.
I promise that you'll never find another like me. I know that I'm a handful, baby. I know I never think before I jump, and you're the kind of guy the ladies want. And there's a lot of cool chicks out there. I know that I went psycho on the phone. I never leave well enough alone, and trouble's gonna follow where I go. And there's a lot of cool chicks out there, but one of these things is not like the others. Like a rainbow with all of the colors. Baby doll when it comes.
All right, guys, joining us for our featured guest this week is Matthew Zator. He writes about the Canucks, the Giants, and the NHL draft for the Hockey Writers. He's also the director for the hockey part of Overtime Heroics, where I wrote briefly for a few months, and is the host of the Canucks and Pucks podcast. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How about you guys?
We're doing great.
Wow.
And so the Canucks training camp is just about to wrap up, or is close to the end. And Matt, how excited are you for hockey to return?
Oh, I've been wanting this for months. So I mean, it's been a long off season that was unplanned, but it's great to have hockey just around the corner, a little less than a week away from an exhibition game, and then we'll get going against the Wild. So it's definitely exciting.
Okay, Matt, how did you get into hockey? Like, when did you become a fan?
Far back as I can remember, I probably the biggest memory that I remember is the '94 playoffs for the Canucks, and that's my earliest hockey memory. But yeah, since then, I followed the Canucks, followed hockey pretty religiously, and yeah, anyone that wants to talk about it, I've talked about it. You can ask my dad about that. So.
At one point, like we usually ask all the writers we have on, is when did you determine, I want to write about hockey and share my, expertise of the game and everything?
I'd say, the last couple of years I've gotten really intense into it. Biggest starting on Canuck Way was my start, and very grateful to the guys over there. David Quadrelli, who was instrumental with my development, and Chris Faber was huge when I started doing just thinking about doing a podcast, and then got on the Hockey Writers, and since then been kind of blown up from there. A lot of great guys over there that helped me out, and yeah, it just taken me a while to get my passion for actually writing about it, but and now that blogging and podcasting is such a big thing in the media, it's gotten me into it a lot more, and I'm happy I'm on the journey.
And do you want to make this a career for you, or is this just a side gig?
No, this is ultimately going to. I want it to be my career. I've been in retail way too long, and done a few other things in the past with teaching, and then into computers for a bit. But ultimately, this is what I want to do with my career and with my life, and hopefully everything goes is on the up and up as time goes on here.
And when we're talking more like the Canucks side of things, obviously very close to the season coming back. What do you expect from the Canucks looking at this series?
Well, I mean, the Minnesota Wild aren't going to be easy to beat, but looking at the depth the Canucks have on the forward lines, and then I'll talk about him later. Probably is Michael Furland, who's healthy finally, it seems, and he could be a really big difference maker in this series coming up too. So with the guys like Quinn Hughes looking stronger, Elias Pettersson looking stronger than the regular season, that's exciting for the Canucks. And even looking at Brock Besser, of how his shot seems to have returned in training camp, and if that all kind of goes right, I mean, the Canucks are a deeper team and a more skilled team than the Wild, definitely younger as well.
And what's one thing the Canucks have to be careful with from the Minnesota Wild? Maybe that could be a particular player from the Wild.
Well, Kevin Fiala is and was a thorn in their side during the regular season. I'm still going to look to him. He's probably going to be at the forefront too. And I mean, their goaltending could be a difference too. Even if Stalock may start the series, but Dubnyk has shown in the past to be a really elite goaltender too. So I think Canucks still have to be worried about the Wild. They're still a great defensive team, and if they get into a point where they can't score goals, that's going to be a problem.
And obviously, we kind of got a big dilemma, let's say, with the bottom six of the right wings. What would you say between, Jake Virtanen, McHugh, and Eriksson and Sutter, in Ferland even for that matter, what to make its bottom six?
I mean, I wrote an article not that long, actually, it was yesterday, about this as the bottom six of the Canucks. I mean, they've got so many possibilities in that lower part of the lineup. I mean, you're looking at guys like McEwen's kind of thrown a wrench in it by having such a strong training camp. He could be a factor in the series. He may even start the series on the fourth line. I mean, looking at even Louis Eriksson, I mean, we like to joke about him and not, kind of ride on him. But the thing is he had a really strong training camp too. And he still has those skills of penalty killing and, the little things, as we say, with him. And I still think, even if everyone's going to have to step up during these playoffs. So you may need guys like Eriksson, Brandon Sutter, guys like that to make a difference in this series. And you need everybody.
And you're right about the Vancouver Giants for the hockey writers. And my next question is from a listener on Twitter, diaper-filled piss baby at 789. I know. And at 789-012 Annie, my God, what's with the numbers? Asks, who is a Giants young player that can have an impact next season? And is it Memorial Cup or bust for the Vancouver Giants next year?
I mean, the Giants they're an interesting team, especially with how the WHL in general, how, with COVID, of when they're going to get started, what it's going to look like. I'm looking to, I don't know if he's going to be coming over from Sweden. They just got Fabian Lysell, on the import draft this past WHL import draft, and he's an exciting player. If he's a guy that comes over, I mean, look to him to be a dominant player right off the bat. I'm hoping he does, because he would bring a lot of excitement to a city that's, the thing is for the WHL to thrive in this coming season, they need fans in the stands, and he'd definitely bring that.
Looking at a big conversation is going to be in the offseason is regarding Jacob Markstrom. What do you think is a market value contract, or one that the Canucks could pay him and be a fair contract for their team?
Markstrom, I mean, the Canucks, I think, definitely need to re-sign him. I mean, Thatcher Demko is going to be the future, but I still think the Canucks should move to actually get him back. I think market value, you're probably going to still looking at a $5-6 million contract. And looking at the goaltenders around his caliber and how he's progressed, the Canucks are going to have a hard time fitting him in. But I still think you're not going to get him for less than that.
And the Canucks signed top defensive prospect Jack Rathbone to an entry-level deal. And what do you think his potential is for the NHL when he gets into the NHL?
I mean, I've been a fan of Jack Rathbone since he was drafted by the Canucks. How he can move the puck, the way he skates, and his hockey IQ are just off the charts. And I'm very excited to actually see him sign after some rumors that maybe the Canucks weren't going to be able to sign him. But I mean, the thing is he's going to be a difference maker coming right out of college. I mean, just his skating ability. He's not at the same level as Quinn Hughes, obviously, but I mean, he's still going to be a dominant defenseman in the league, especially with the way he passes the puck through the neutral zone and skates it too. Like, just watching clips of him in college, he rarely dumps the puck in. He always either skates it in or passes it. And that's what the Canucks need on the blue line. They need to be able to have defensemen that can do that, not just Quinn Hughes, because I mean, Hughes is just one guy. You need more than that going forward.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Do you think that Cole Lynn will eventually crack this lineup, in the upcoming season? And, secondary, obviously, Yoli Levy, the same question. Will he crack the lineup soon?
Poland, I think, will be one of those guys that'll be main call-up next season. I don't think he'll have a spot in the lineup right away, but it's very encouraging to see him in Utica this past season actually make that some significant strides in his development of playing, that game that he had in the WHL. I mean, as a second-round pick, he had a little bit of a letdown season in his first season, but the thing is he's usually a sophomore surge type guy. He doesn't have a great first season in his, in a first league when he comes into it, but he's such a, he could be a difference maker in the bottom two lines when he comes in, and ultimately he could even be in the top six, but I don't think next season will be his, season that he'll play a full season with the Canucks, but he's definitely going to be a main call-up. As for Olli Levy, it's very encouraging to see him in training camp kind of progress. Didn't have a lot of big moments in training camp, but that's just not the defenseman he is. I mean, he's more of that guy that's, solid in his own end, passing the puck out of his own end, but it's nice to actually see him progress, and hopefully he can actually have a spot in the lineup next season because, we kind of grind on him too. Being a fifth overall pick and not progressing as much as some other defensemen that were drafted after him. But I still think he's going to be a very key defenseman for the Canucks going forward.
And what are your ideal lines for the Canucks heading into the Minnesota series? You don't have to answer this in full if you can't think of any.
Ideal lines. My top two lines are like what everyone's been kind of going for is, Toffoli, Pettersson, and Miller. I was kind of partial to putting Besser back there with the Lotto line and all that, but I mean, putting Besser with Horvat and Pearson, that kind of creates that second wave of attack that the Canucks need. Third and fourth lines. I really like that McEwen, Roussel, Gaudette line, but now that Ferland's been put there in the last scrimmage, I really like that line, is that agitating two-way line that can, score some goals, be a physical presence down low. And then you got your fourth line of Mott, Beagle. And I want to put McEwen on that right wing, but looking at Green, I think he'll probably put Eriksson or Sutter just to have that defensive presence and, face ability from Sutter. I want McEwen there, though, so we'll see what happens.
And then obviously looking back into the series again, like who do you think an X factor could be, like a Troy Stetcher or one of those guys?
I mean, I wanted to say Jake Virtanen. I was kind of pushing hard for him before training camp. I kind of started that he was going to be an X factor. He may ultimately come into the lineup and be that, I'm hoping. But now looking at a guy that hasn't been really talked about is, I mean, yeah, like you say with Troy Stetcher, I mean, really haven't talked about him at all during training camp, but I mean, he could still be a defenseman that could, make a difference, not scoring, but just being that solid guy down that third pairing. As for forwards, now that Ferland has kind of looked really, really good going here, I think Ferland's going to be that X factor that could ultimately turn a series, especially if he's going to be as physical as he says he's going to be in his interview today, saying he's going to hit hard. So if he can be that guy, that's a difference, especially for a series that may be a tight series as it goes.
I have to agree on that. And Ferland has looked great in today with the scrimmages, and let's hope he can actually stay healthy, and he could be a factor for the series. But I want to ask you, who do you think will be the Canucks' leading scorer in the series against the Wild?
I'm going with Elias Pettersson. I was kind of between JT Miller too, but Pettersson's looked in training camp. He's just looked. I mean, we're kind of expecting him to be otherworldly a lot of the time, but I mean, in training camp, he was looking like he's ready to go. He's ready to dominate a series, and he can definitely do that. Quinn Hughes has looked again. He's looked amazing, ever since he started in the NHL, but he's looked even stronger in training camp. and through the scrimmages. And not saying he's going to be a leading scorer, but he's going to be a solid, being back there as well, especially on the power play.
And what are your thoughts on the new Seattle Kraken?
Seattle, I actually like their name. Looking at all the other names that I've kind of put forward, I didn't really like any of them. They've already got a tagline and released the Kraken, and their logo and jerseys are actually a lot nicer than I thought they would come out with. But I actually really like it.
And do you have any bold predictions for the playoffs, like among the other teams that are competing?
Bold predictions. I'm going to say the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to surprise again. I don't like Tortorella as a coach, but I mean, he's kind of got that team working on very good defensively, and they have some underrated players. And again, they're going to be healthy. I think the Blue Jackets are probably going to be that surprise team in the East that could come out of it. The Boston Bruins, just as a bold prediction, I think they're going out right away in the first round, just because of all their issues that they're having with injuries. I mean, if Pasternak does come back, maybe, but I mean, we don't like the Boston Bruins, but I'm going to say they're not going to go as far as everyone kind of thought they would in just going through the regular season is how dominant they were there. But after this COVID stuff, I think they're a little bit different. You got to look at all the teams differently now.
I got to second that answer. What makes you hate Tortorella as a coach? Is it just his mentality, or is something deployment wise that you just don't like about him?
I think mostly of how he dealt with stuff in Vancouver, and he had that 1 year, like he's been a good coach in the past with the Lightning and then with the Blue Jackets here, and I don't know what happened to him in the year he was here, but I think he's just left that bad taste in my mouth. I can't really shake it.
What was it? You could tell he didn't really want to be here, and he just came here anyway, because he's living in Point Roberts and the whole bit.
That's right. Didn't seem very committed to the job, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And moving into the next one, we're making this a regular question. Baseball's back now. You're coming up to bat. Doesn't mean you don't have to make any comment if you play baseball or not. What's your walk-up song? Like, you're getting fired up, just about to go to bat. What's the walk-up song?
I don't really have one that I want to say. I'm going to say Shake It Off by Taylor Swift.
Not a bad answer. I would have thought. Who we have last week? We had Mac Miller from.
Yeah, we had Mac Miller. Now we have Taylor Swift. I mean, it's not a bad answer. Well, yeah, and still haven't listened to her new album, but I'll do that after we record this. But last question is from Uncle Elite. He asks, "Why did you block him?"
Why did I block that guy?
Yeah.
I think it was some comment he made on one of my posts, and I'm like, what? It's like it wasn't very intelligent, and as looking back, I just don't really. I could have muted him, I guess, but yeah, ultimately, I kind of just blocked him.
Well, anyway, Matthew, thank you for coming on Avid Discussers, and it was a fun chat. And listeners, check out Matthew's work for the Hockey Writers, and check out his own podcast, Canucks and Pucks. I was a guest on there a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm returning the favor.
Yes, that's nice.
Matthew, do you have any last comments or anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, just very happy that hockey's back and we're able to watch some live Canucks hockey rather than just looking at highlights and talking about what ifs. It's going to be just great to watch some hockey and do some articles on stuff that's actually happened, not just interviews and training camp. All
right, folks, you can follow Matt on Twitter at Matthew Zator SC. And Matthew, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Yes.
All right. Thanks.
He rocks in the treetop all the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' Robin.
All right, everybody. It's time for the best and worst of Twitter, as well as question period. I'll start us off. So Jason Bruff tweeted, "Ever find yourself reading some random's tweets and you can't believe such a person would exist?" Here's one for worst. This guy, Andrew Boza, he tweets, "Roses are red, violets are blue. F the haters, respect Jim Benning." Jim Benning knows cap management as well as anyone in the world. And then Best Mode screenshotted Bruff's tweet and just replied with that. Yeah, like, first of all, the poem doesn't even rhyme. If you want to do a roses are red, violets are blue, you got to make it rhyme. It doesn't rhyme. And for a guy who spends a lot of money on fourth liners, he sure does know cap management, because he spends a lot of money on fourth liners and overspends on Tyler Myers. But I digress. And here's one from someone in Guelph says, "Scotiabank and Guelph refused to let me without any flip-flops on this essential business. My money. They refused to let me in on an empty bank without flip-flops on. I have very pretty feet, and they were painted a bright red, and I have a diamond toe ring. How rude." Pretty much making fun of all the people who won't wear masks. Like, seriously, wear a mask. It's not that hard. And then we got one from Primetime Snoop, a legend. Here's his 3 key takeaways to avoid COVID-19. 1. Cactus Club is nice, but stay home and eat roti, whatever that is. 2. Those strippers' butt cheeks are soothing to slap, but stay home and watch porn for a while, or you can play GTA. There's a strip club in there. 3. Sit at home, drink, BBQ, do drugs, kiss your dog, not randoms on the street. All right, Snoop. Take your word from it. Don't know what roti is, but whatever. And someone shared a picture of an elementary school test saying, "Bobby has 4 dimes. Amy has 30 pennies. What child has more money?" Then the kid answers with Bobby. "How do you know?" "Sure, you're thinking." Then he just draws himself thinking about Bobby. What did I think of that when I was a kid? And Michael, the Leafs IMO, says Seattle Kraken's mascot has been leaked, and it's Squidward dancing. Seriously, if their mascot isn't some variation of Squidward, they're doing it all wrong. And someone named Vision noticed that if you put the Kraken's logo, the Avalanche's logo, and the Stars logo, it spells sad. And Steve Dangle posted a tweet of his dog Iggy and his newborn son Leo. Very precious picture. Very wholesome. And someone tweeted this picture of when all the girls posting about the 10th anniversary of One Direction, but no one remembered the 802nd anniversary of the siege of Damascus during the Second Crusade. How dare they? Very historical event. And I'll end it off. Well, this one was just a few hours ago. Andrew Walker, Sportsnet 650, says Russell Wilson naming his kid Win is the most narcissistic thing I've ever heard. The most narcissistic thing I've ever heard. Embarrassing. Might as well have gone with Kraken. Then the Canucks Reddit experience screenshots Walker's bio, and in which reads, "King of Vancouver Radio." Yeah. It's a bit rich coming from you, Walker. But Ty, do you have any before we head into questions?
I've been off Twitter a lot this week. Let's just say.
Let's get into questions.
I've taken a little bit of a break from it. I've been on saying my little posts and the whole bit, but haven't been engaging with those trolls lately.
Okay. All right, we got one from. We actually got 3 this week. Diaper Filled Piss Baby at 789012 any friend of the show. He asks, Ty, do you collect the tears of your haters and make G&Ts with them?
Obviously.
All right. Hassan Ahmed at Ace103196. Geez, what's with the numbers in your bios? Asks, with the expansion draft coming, would you trade a draft pick or other asset for Seattle to take Myers? If yes, what's the maximum you would give? It's a good question.
I have to lean with no, because it's not. again, you're going to have to give up an asset for somebody you literally just signed, and I think like I don't think I could give away a first, but in a sense, like it just really just shows how stupid Benning was for signing that contract, because it's going to pretty much hamper them into contention window. Either way, you're going to have to get rid of him at some point. So maybe I'd actually maybe consider it, because realistically, you're going to have to get rid of him either way. Like, you're not going to contend with a $6 million Tyler Myers in, I'd say, 2 years. He's going to be in the bottom pair, and you're already seeing glimpses of him, getting moved to the bottom pair. I think at some point you're going to have to get rid of him, because you're not going to contend. It's going to be the same way that the Patrick Marleau contract was in Toronto, that they won't be able to contend with him. So I'd probably say second round pick I'd probably go to.
I'd probably go with a second round pick at most. I'm definitely not getting rid of first.
I can't give up a first. Like, that's
no, I can't.
If you're at the end of the first round, if you're like a playoff team already and you think, okay, we'll get rid of Tyler Myers, like, yeah, if it's like a 25th pick, yeah, I can do that. But like, realistically, the Canucks are probably like an average team. So again, we can't project them to have anything better than at most maybe an 18th, 19th pick. Like, at most, we can't project them to have anything worse than that in terms of how late they pick. So your first round pick is still pretty, it's a significant piece you're giving up for them to take on a contract you just literally sold your soul to get.
I mean, yes and no to this question. I'd do it.
I think you'd have to, because you'd have to look into it, because realistically, how many, he's got 4 more years left. So like, at most, you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 more years before
he declines.
Is it 5? Like, he's already declining. Like,
yeah.
And it's scary to think of near the end of that contract, you're going to have him on the bottom pair. So realistically, either way, you're going to be paying a significant amount to get rid of him for some cap team to take him, or you're going to end up with him on the bottom. You're going to get rid of him now, and so I just worry that this is going to end up with like the way that like Florida did it, though. So like, that's why I just like don't want to get rid of him now, because I think that the most likely scenario is that one of our goalies is lost.
Yeah,
and
probably.
We don't lose anybody else other than that. Here's the thing, though. Like, situations like this is how Seattle is going to be like Vegas if they're smart. And I was looking at it, like, they'll probably end up relatively like close to what Vegas is if they're smart, because teams will be like, yeah, here, take this contract and we'll give you this. But then, all of a sudden there's prospect pool and their asset pool is stacked because there's so many picks. And then you end up with like I wouldn't be surprised if say they end up with like Erik Karlsson or Brent Burns, like one of those two. I really wouldn't be surprised at all.
And there's another thing, like, Seattle's going to be a very heavy analytics team. Would they be willing to take Myers, who the analytics say isn't very good? So that's another factor. But let's move on to the last question.
The problem with the analytics of Myers, right, is that the analytics would say that he's very good at driving offensive play, right? Except his defense is so terrible that it almost like any good he does with his offense it's not very good. But if you say he's paired with like a guy who's really good at driving defensive play, it kind of offsets really. So maybe they look at it that way, that like if they find the ideal partner for him, it's a really good match, because he drives offensive play at like a good rate. It's just the Canucks don't have anybody that's like really good in that sense of driving defensive play outside of Quinn Hughes, and it's not worth it offsetting Quinn Hughes because of how bad Myers' defensive play is. So I think like if they're smart with it, they can make it work. But again, they probably look at Myers' contract and they're like, this guy's like market value is like $2 million. Like, there's no reason for us to be paying him $6 million.
Last question is from Bichette at Bichette9999. Jeez, what's with the numbers? How excited are you guys to see Mike Tyson get in the ring again? Oh, for one, I'm surprised he's even stepping back in. He's 54. I'm not sure if his body's the same way it used to be, but I'd like to see him fight again, and maybe we could bet money on a fight, and I'll probably watch some boxing. And the only boxer I really care for is Manny Pacquiao because I'm Filipino, but Mike Tyson's a legend, so I I can't deny his greatness, and I can't pass up watching him fight. And he hasn't fought like in over a decade, so that'll be fun to watch.
15 years hasn't fought since?
Yeah, 2005 is when he last fought.
I think he wins in 3 rounds. That's my guess.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised for that either. But anyway,
he's fighting a guy that's 51. Like I think it's pretty safe to say he's done in 3 rounds. Either way, it'll be fun to watch.
Fight between 2 middle-aged boxers. That'll be a treat. And anyway, that wraps up today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Give us feedback on Twitter and on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at JoshuaRay91. Ty is at TParty21, and the podcast is at Avid Discussers. Same handles for Instagram, and you can also find us on Facebook, Avid Discussers Podcast. You search it up. And I want to announce that with hockey returning, Ty and I would like to do some Periscopes, some live Periscopes on Twitter, for a few minutes after every Canucks game to discuss the game. I mean, we are avid discussers. We're going to avidly discuss the game, share reactions and all that, maybe interact with you. I'm going to try to figure out how this Periscope thing works because I'm not sure how it works. I'll probably ask Sean Warren of the Area 51 Hockey Podcast. Shout out to them. They've done great stuff. So look for that once hockey resumes. And that concludes this week's episode. We'll see you next week. Peace out.